Hey everybody, welcome to my very basic guide. This episode we'll be talking about murdering people with extra style and grace. The classical beat-em-up styles of martial characters may tire some people that crave a bit more finesse in their fanatical monster-slaying quests. This is where the Battle Master becomes the envy of many other fighter subclasses, as it kind of has a pseudo-monopoly on a series of maneuvers that dramatically increases their fightery-ness to superhuman heights. The Battle Master is for those of us that kinda wanna be superheroes only without the superpowers, relying on their intense training, years of experience, and sheer grit and determination to lay the smackdown on their foes instead. If you like the sound of classic hack and slash warrior that puts in the blood, sweat, and tears to refine and improve their skills, then this video might be for you. The Battle Master is also a very cool subclass that is able to augment its attacks with special maneuvers that enhances a fighter's versatility, allowing for combat that goes above and beyond the normal attack action, then end turn, that other martial characters suffer from. This video will go over the absolutely gigantic list of maneuvers that Battle Masters get to pick from, including the newer ones from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. But first things first, let's start with some of the base fighter class abilities that you get before you become a true Battle Master. Starting our rigorous journey of martial prowess, we get Fighting Style and Second Wind as our first level features. You get some cool passive buffs that will help you survive the earlier levels of being an adventurer, and the first level is essentially a small taste of what is to come for you as a pure martial character. Reaching level 2, you get probably the most iconic ability of the fighter class, and that is their Action Surge feature. It's one of the few abilities in Dungeons & Dragons that allows you to add to your action economy as a player character. That's a pretty big deal, especially at level 2. Being able to proc your extra attacks multiple times in one round is a massive damage multiplier, but also having an additional action that can be used in any way that you want is an extremely flexible ability to pop when you need it, such as being able to dash twice if you really need to run away from something. If you reach level 17, you get 2 action surges, but you can only use 1 surge per turn, and you can recharge all of your action surges on a long or short rest. Finally, reaching level 3 and becoming a fully fledged Battle Master, you first receive the martial archetype feature, Student of War. All it does is give you proficiency with a single type of artisan's tools, which is a nice to have kind of feature for fleshing out your character outside of pure combat. There's quite a lot of tools to pick from. You can choose to be a carpenter or side hustle as a cook, or maybe even a glass blower, or whatever floats your boat and makes sense for the type of character that you want to be. It's a nice ribbon feature, you know? Now moving on from Student of War, we reach the more important side of level 3 subclass features, in the form of a Battle Master's Combat Superiority. This is the feature that unlocks your true potential as a muscle mage, casting your ever-expanding list of maneuvers using Superiority dice as its fuel source. At level 3, you start out with only 4 Superiority dice, which are d8s, and you can replenish all of your Superiority dice when you take a short or long rest. At level 7, you gain an additional die for a total of 5, and at level 15, you gain another for a grand sum of 6 Superiority dice. The maneuvers themselves are really cool, and are the highlight of this entire subclass, and the main reason to play Battle Master. One of their best aspects is the saving throw that scales with your regular martial abilities. The saving throw for maneuvers is equal to 8 plus your proficiency bonus, plus your strength or dexterity modifier, and it's your choice. This allows for a great degree of flexibility in terms of how you can use your maneuvers and the type of weapons that you can try out and build a character the way you like. The flexible saving throw is also one of the big reasons why many players that want a cool archer build can choose the Battle Master as their primary class, since there's quite a few maneuvers that can be applied to ranged weapons. Also, the fact that you don't have to waste ability score improvements on the traditional saving throw stats is a big boon to Battle Masters as well, being able to completely focus on increasing their durability or flat damage output. Battle Masters at level 3 start off with 3 chosen maneuvers from their incredibly massive list. You learn 2 more maneuvers at level 7, level 10, and level 15 for a final total of 9 maneuvers that you can pick from. You are not able to stack multiple maneuvers on a single strike, meaning you have to expend your superiority dice over multiple weapon attacks, which is what fighters are good at anyways, but the restriction is there so you don't burn all your maneuvers on a single natural 20. It is also worth noting that you can replace a pre-existing maneuver whenever you learn new ones, similar to how spellcasters can replace their old spells. Alright, now it's time for me to briefly summarize the long list of your super powerful maneuvers, starting from the player's handbook. The first one is Commander's Strike. It is a maneuver that allows you to pass up on one of your own attacks and then use your bonus action to order someone else to do the heavy lifting for you. It's a maneuver that benefits specifically the rogue sneak attack and maybe the warlock if they have the hex on the enemy. But outside of specific character classes that benefit from free reaction attacks, Commander's Strike isn't as potent as some other maneuvers that you can use to buff your own damage output, but it's still a pretty cool maneuver, all things considered. Disarming Attack is a maneuver that lets you knock stuff out of an enemy's evil hands if they fail a strength saving throw, which in theory is pretty great, but in practice there's just a lot of enemies that don't carry around weapons and can destroy you with other means. And doubly unfortunate is that a lot of the creatures that do carry big sticks probably also have a really high strength score, making the disarming attack less effective than you would otherwise hope for. That being said, if you do encounter enemies that are perhaps big in the brain but weak in the muscle, then Disarming Strike might prove to be excellent in specific scenarios, such as if you're fighting an enemy spellcaster and you knock off their arcane focus. Distracting Strike is a maneuver that causes enemies to look over their shoulders, giving your friends advantage on their next attack roll. Your ally also gets extra damage from your superiority die roll as long as they attack before the start of your next turn. This is a pretty useful maneuver that shines the brightest in teams that have big heavy hitters that benefit greatly from being able to consistently land their attack rolls, such as the Rogue or maybe even the Paladin if you want to fish for natural 20s. Evasive Footwork is the maneuver for people that like risking their lives by provoking attacks of opportunity whenever you can. You can roll a superiority die and add it to your armor class whenever you move, and the buff to your AC lasts until you stop moving. This is a pretty massive buff to your armor class, but its very specific application makes Evasive Footwork extremely tricky to get good use out of, with the ideal outcome being that you waste a bunch of enemy reactions and allowing the rest of your team to move scot-free. Feinting Attack is a maneuver for battle masters that enjoy helping themselves more than others by using their bonus action to give themselves advantage on their next attack roll on an enemy within 5 feet. If the attack lands, then you also get extra damage from rolling your superiority die, which also carries the downside of you potentially still missing and then wasting your Feinting Attack extra damage. Feinting Attack is a fairly straightforward self-buffing maneuver and is most useful for when you want to guarantee yourself a hit on a creature who is concentrating on a spell or maybe just trying to finish off a low hit point but high AC enemy. Goading Attack is a maneuver that essentially emulates the taunt mechanic from RPGs and implements them by expending a superiority die to add to the damage roll of your attack and then forcing a wisdom saving throw on the creature that you struck with the maneuver. If they fail the wisdom saving throw, the enemy will receive disadvantage on all attack rolls against targets that is not the battle master, incentivizing the enemy to stick onto you rather than your back line, which is probably what you want if you're a team player. Lunging Attack is for people who desire that extra bit of length in their day-to-day life, increasing your melee weapon's reach by 5 feet for one attack. The good news is that if you hit, you do get to roll your superiority die as extra damage, but lunging attack is not that great for battle masters, since fighters are equally proficient with ranged weapons and throwing weapons as well, making lunging attacks an additional 5 feet not very impressive in most scenarios, especially when compared to all the other maneuvers on the battle master's hefty list. Maneuvering Attack is for helping out your friends who always get in trouble by helping them maneuver with their reaction to move up to half their movement speed without provoking an attack of opportunity. Kinda cool, but fairly specific in what it's useful in. The ability to give someone else a free disengage and then some extra movement is definitely interesting, but unlikely to make that big of a difference in a battle, especially since your ally used up their reaction, meaning they can't really stick to a new target even if they wanted to. Menacing Attack is for spooky battle masters that want to debuff enemies on a failed wisdom saving throw, causing them to receive the frightened condition from the battle master. The frightened condition is a powerful weakening effect and can shift the tide of a battle in your favor if the enemy is not immune to fear effects. But I think as far as maneuvers go, Menacing Attack is pretty great. Parry is a maneuver that helps you survive big blows by reducing the incoming damage equal to your superiority die plus your dexterity modifier. Unfortunately, it only works on melee attacks, and your superiority die kinda scales slowly, so the damage reduction is going to be most useful at earlier levels, or if you are a dexterity focused battle master that needs the extra durability on the front lines. Precision Attack is for those of us that enjoy having the ability to toast fate into our favor by deciding to turn misses into hits by adding your superiority die to your attack roll after seeing the results of the d20. So as long as you pay attention to the enemy's armor class, you will very rarely waste your superiority die when using Precision Attack. But unfortunately, Precision Attack does not add anything to your damage roll, which is its major drawback, but still a very solid maneuver. Pushing Attack is for battle masters that enjoy throwing their weight around and causing enemies that fail a strength saving throw to be shoved up to 15 feet away from you. This is another maneuver that is kinda niche in when it's actually useful, but being able to make fun plays like pushing enemies off a cliff or into a trap is always very satisfying, and Pushing Attack makes it very easy. Rally allows you to lift the spirits of one of your comrades by using your bonus action to expend a superiority die that is rolled and added to your charisma modifier to give us temporary hit points. As a battle master, your charisma is most likely not going to be very high, so the temporary hit points won't be that impressive, but it is extra durability that lasts until long rest, so it definitely has its uses. Riposte is a maneuver that allows you to strike back with your reaction whenever an enemy misses their melee attack on you. You get to retaliate with superiority die, buffing your damage roll if you land your counter strike. Riposte is a pretty good maneuver, especially for battle masters that wear heavy armor, making it more likely for enemies to miss and thus generating free strikes with your reaction more often. Sweeping Attack is kind of like a poor man's cleave ability in D&D, activating when you hit one person and then you want to spread that damage to someone else. It is a maneuver that allows you to potentially do some extra damage to one other target within 5 feet of the original enemy and also within your own reach. This extra damage is equal to superiority die roll and is only applied if the original attack roll would beat the armor class of this new target. So yeah, it's not a lot of damage and it only hurts one other target at the best of times, making it kind of like an expensive green flame blade. Shrub Attack is a maneuver for kicking people when they're already down. It's a great feeling as a battle master to get advantage on all of your attacks, which is why Trip Attack is a classic maneuver that many builds employ to knock enemies prone and giving yourself and your buddies the ability to really lay the smackdown on your foes. This can dramatically increase your own lethality since fighters get a lot of extra attacks, but it's also pretty useful for your fellow frontliners trying to get in on the action and can even be more useful in more dire events where you want to slow down your enemies before retreating. There are also quite a few newer maneuvers that were introduced in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. Ambush is the maneuver that you go for if you want to always get the drop on the enemy and gives Battlemasters more utility outside of direct combat crunching. The ambush maneuver also allows you to buff your stealth checks with your superiority die, but it also can be used for your initiative roll, which is a pretty handy thing to have, especially for fighters that invest heavily in their strength and are usually slower in the combat turn order. The next maneuver is bait and switch. It is a pretty interesting ability that allows you to pull a friend out of a sticky situation. Bait and switch is a maneuver that is highly situational, yet can be really cool when trying to save an ally by switching spots with them and yanking them out of dangerous territory without provoking an attack of opportunity, and also rolling for additional armor class that can be given to either yourself or the person you are switching out with. So yes, it is a very unique maneuver, and it's hard to really gauge how effective it is until you try it out. Brace is a maneuver that is kind of like a more general version of Polearm Master, allowing you to use your reaction to make a weapon attack against a creature that moves into your reach. You expend your superiority die to activate this ability, and then the die roll is added to the weapon's stack damage if it hits. Being able to essentially get an additional attack in exchange for one superiority die is a pretty decent trade, especially if you have a big chunky weapon to swing about. Commanding Presence is another maneuver that helps you out in your skill check department by giving you a superiority die to add to your intimidation, performance, or persuasion check. Unfortunately, Battlemasters are an honest bunch apparently, and Commanding Presence does not do anything for deception check. Commanding Presence is a cool ability that allows your character to fulfill a leader type of role without having to waste your ability score improvements on Charisma. Grappling Strike is a maneuver that gives you the ability to grapple with your bonus action if you land a hit on an enemy. Your expended superiority die is then added to your athletics check when making your grapple. This is a pretty great maneuver that functions really well if you hit with a second attack after inflicting the prone condition by either shoving the enemy to the ground with the first attack or by utilizing the trip attack maneuver on your first strike and then using grapple strike on the second. The reason why grapple is pretty strong on prone targets is because if you successfully grapple a creature, then their movement speed drops to 0, and that means they cannot stand back up, giving all melee attackers advantage, and the prone enemy will also have disadvantage on their attack rolls. Quick Toss is a maneuver for people that really enjoy the Hollywood style of sticking your enemies with the might of your throwing arm. This is a maneuver that is activated through your bonus action to make a ranged attack with a thrown weapon. This gives you the ability to add your superiority die to damage roll if you land your hit. Tactical Assessment is the last maneuver introduced in Tasha's Cauldron. It is a maneuver that is for those of us that like to use our big brains to figure stuff out, and it gives investigation, history, and insight checks a superiority die bonus added to the skill check. It's another maneuver that is specific to the kind of character that you want to play as, and helps shore up the Battlemaster's classical weakness of not being that good at anything other than fighting. So in summary, there's just a lot to choose from, and a lot of maneuvers that complement different team compositions, and a lot of different ways you can choose to build your own Battlemaster to make it unique. There are some that I think are better or more versatile than others, but that should not dissuade you from trying out novel strategies that sound more interesting to play or are more fitting for the kind of Battlemaster that you want to build from a mechanical or roleplay perspective. Do you ever get tired of being accused of metagaming? Well, now you can shut people up with the Battlemaster's level 7 ability, Know Your Enemy. This martial archetype feature allows you to study a creature outside of combat for at least 1 minute, to gather vital intel on your potential enemy. Your Dungeon Master is forced to tell you whether the creature is superior, inferior, or equal compared to the Battlemaster's own stats. The info can either be their strength, dexterity, or con score. It can also be armor class, or it can be their current hit points, or even the creature's total class levels, or fighter levels if they have any. This feature is definitely somewhat niche in the chances you get to use it, since most antagonists probably don't like nosy people staring at them for 1 minute straight, but assuming you're stealthy enough or if your enemy does not suspect you, then Know Your Enemy can definitely prove to be an extraordinarily helpful tool when planning to take down a boss or deciding to encounter is too deadly for your current level. Know Your Enemy also does not have any restrictions, so I assume you can use it over and over again on the same enemy as long as you put in the additional minutes. Arriving at level 10, the fuel that you need to use to feed your Battlemaster maneuvers get a small but noticeable upgrade with improved combat superiority, turning your superiority dice into d10s instead of d8s. This is on average a small bump in power, but because of how often the Battlemasters will use and abuse their maneuvers in most of their encounters, the d10s add up pretty quickly. Not only that, but the d10 is not your superiority dice's final form. At level 18, the combat superiority dice evolve one last time, turning them into d12s. Again, small gains in terms of numerical increases, but it does have a rippling impact, making all of your maneuvers feel that extra bit more powerful, and in turn will make the Battlemaster feel a lot more powerful and smoother to play. Finally, reaching level 15, it is where we receive our final Battlemaster martial archetype feature in the form of Relentless. As a seasoned Battlemaster, you are probably going to be popping your maneuvers more and more frequently, constantly consuming all of your tasty superiority dice in ever increasingly voracious volumes, which is where being Relentless really saves your bacon, as it is a feature that will always ensure that you have at least one superiority die when you enter combat. It is a feature that replenishes one superiority die if you have 0 whenever you roll for initiative, and this is a passive restoration of superiority dice that doesn't cost you anything and does not run out. This is an incredible buff, as it means you will never completely run out of gas and can now be more free in your expenditure of your main resources, and consequently be more effective for more fights if the adventuring becomes truly relentless. And that about does it for this very basic guide on the Battlemaster martial archetype of the fighter's class, as presented in the player's handbook alongside some extra maneuvers provided by Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. This video has taken a lot longer than I thought, and it's a lot longer than I thought it was going to be, so sorry. But thanks everyone again for all the love and support that you have all given me on these videos. It means a lot to me, and people seem to like what I do. Last time I checked, they got over 1270 subscribers, so you know, I can't overstate how awesome that is. Thank you guys so much. And as always, I hope that anyone who watches my stuff enjoys what I create as much as I enjoy creating in the first place. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, goodbye for now.